Hi students, coming to the next topic, that is polymorphism. This polymorphism is one of the important feature of the object-oriented programming. So let us see what is this polymorphism. A polymorphism is a combination of two Greek words. Combination of two Greek words. So what are those? So those are poly and morphism. So this is divided into two. The polymorphism is divided into poly and morphism. So poly is nothing but means many. Poly means many. Whereas a morphism means form. So what it represents? Polymorphism means many forms. So one thing can be represented in many forms, that you call it as a polymorphism. So the functionality of this feature resembles with its name only. So what its name? Polymorphism, many forms. So one thing can be represented in many forms. Okay, so let us see one example to explain this polymorphism. Suppose you are the person. So you are a person. Suppose if you take a person. So this person means, suppose a person is yourself only. So suppose you are in a shopping mall. Suppose you are in a shopping mall. You behave like a customer. So if I'm explaining about what is a polymorphism, I said polymorphism means many forms. So one can be represented in many forms. So how it is possible? I'm explaining that example. So I'm taking a person, or in this person you just think about yourself. So if you are in shopping mall, you behave like a customer. Suppose if you are in bus, you behave like passenger. Okay. Suppose you are at school. You behave like student. Okay. Suppose if you are at home, you behave like son or daughter. Okay, if you're a daughter, if you're a girl, it's a daughter or a son. Means here one person, yourself, is behaving like a customer, passenger, student, son or daughter. Means here only one. Okay, so you're representing in many forms. That is a polymorphism. One thing can be represented in many forms. So here one person is acting like a customer, he is acting like a passenger, he is acting like a student, and he is acting like a son or a daughter. So this is a polymorphism. A polymorphism means more than one function, with the same name, but with different working. So here your person, okay, you are with the same name. So with same name as a Bhanu, but doing different working. So Bhanu is acting like a customer, and this Bhanu is acting like a passenger. Bhanu is like student. Bhanu is like son or a daughter. Okay, so a more than one function with the same name but with different working, you call it as a polymorphism. I hope you will get what is a polymorphism. Now coming to the different types of polymorphism. Let us see types of polymorphism. So actually the polymorphism are of two types. One is the static polymorphism You also call it as a compile time. Compile time polymorphism and dynamic polymorphism. So dynamic polymorphism is also called as runtime polymorphism. So there are two types of polymorphism. One is a static and one is the dynamic. Static is nothing but as a compile time, whereas dynamic is called as a runtime polymorphism. So let us see. So first I said a polymorphism is of two types. So one is, you call it as a static or compile time polymorphism, and another is dynamic or runtime polymorphism. So again this the examples for static or compile time polymorphism are, one is function overloading, okay, and another is operator overloading. Operator overloading. So these are the examples of the static or compile time polymorphism. Whereas dynamic or runtime polymorphism, the example for this is virtual functions. So these are the different types of polymorphism. Different types of polymorphism are static or dynamic. Static is having examples for static polymorphism is function overloading and operator overloading, whereas dynamic is for virtual functions. Actually the static polymorphism is also called as early binding and compile time polymorphism. Okay, and coming to dynamic, dynamic polymorphism is also called as late binding. So static is early binding, dynamic is late binding, and runtime polymorphism. So the main difference between static and dynamic means, here the static means the memory allocated only at compile time. So when you are using the static, it means memory will be allocated only at runtime. That's why we call it as a runtime polymorphism. The another name for static is compile time. Compile time. So this is static. So why we are calling it as a compile time? Because the memory will be allocated only at compile time. That's why we call it as a compile time polymorphism. The another name for static polymorphism is compile time, because it is allocated the memory only at compile time. Whereas dynamic means memory allocated at runtime. So at the runtime only the memory will be allocated. That you call it as a dynamic polymorphism. Okay. So this is the introduction of the polymorphism. So in this I explained the definition of the polymorphism with an example, and I explained the different types of polymorphism, the static and the dynamic. The static again is having the function overloading, operator overloading, whereas dynamic is virtual functions. So in the next video I will explain what is the function overloading, operator overloading, and the virtual functions. Thank you.